Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Upper Tier Podcast. If you could subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification button, drop a like on the video, all that usual good stuff. Our fourth day in a row podcasting here, so we're grinding as we do each week. Joining me as always, my Thursday husband nearly at this stage, the Dazzler. How are we?
I'm laughing. That's when Lauren texted me a few weeks ago. I'm down as Dad's husband in her phone.
Yeah.
I went in to change my mobile phone last week. I was telling you, and I went into the shop, and your man says to me, he said, "What plan are you on?" I said, "I'm on 60 a month or something." And he says, maybe, you could come down a level, save yourself a few quid. He says, because the prices are going to go up and whatever. And I says, "Oh, okay." I said, "Like, how does it work?" He said, "Well, what you're on at the minute," he said, is unlimited calls, texts, and data. He said, "But the level below you," he said, "would be 200 minutes of talking." And he said, most people wouldn't do 200 minutes of talking. And I says, "Oh, all right, have a little look there, and he went over to check how many minutes of talking I did. And it was at that point he realized he had fucked up.
Or that you have a problem.
Or that I have a problem. He said, "Wow," he said, I've not seen too many that size before." He was talking about the minutes now. And I says, "Oh, really?" He says, "Oh, yeah." He says, "Like, that's top 5 of all time." I spend apparently 1,800 minutes a month talking on the phone. Now, I didn't think that seemed like a lot, but when you divide it by 30 days, it's an hour a day on the phone.
An hour a day, yeah.
It's not, I don't think it's massive, but everybody else I've spoken to seems to think it's quite a lot.
Yeah, but I suppose, like, apart from me and Rosanna and family and people like that and all and stuff, like, you would be taking a lot of calls in relation to your occupation and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I would be talking to parents and stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
I was actually going to say to him, it doesn't measure how many voice notes you make, does it? Because if it did that, I'd really be in trouble.
Absolutely. WhatsApp is just beyond us at this stage.
But I mean, like, I don't even like typing, so I just keep leaving these. Yeah, do you know what I was going to say? Blah, blah, blah. Leave the voice note, beep, and then away we go. So
imagine your overall screen time if you coupled your call minutes with your WhatsApp and all your other socials and stuff.
Well,
like that.
I happen to know what it is, because if you're an iPhone user, it tells you.
Okay. Warns you.
It's quite scary.
Yeah, it is scary.
It's quite scary.
I told you the story back in 95 when they were releasing Windows. I was working for Microsoft and I did a seminar with Bill Gates up in Leopardstown. And he said back in 95, he turned around when Windows 95 launched. He came over for the launch in Europe. And he said that within 20 years that human beings will be controlled by a mobile handheld device.
Well, I have in front of me my daily average.
Oh, God.
What do you reckon?
I would have no idea.
I don't love looking at this, if I'm honest.
It is scary, isn't it?
This is scary.
Yeah.
This is scary. And every time I look around and something's not done, I go, didn't really have time for that. And then I see this and I go, whoa.
You had plenty of time for it. Yeah, it's always
let's
the way.
Let's see if you can see that.
6 hours, 24 minutes.
A day.
That's crazy, isn't it?
That's that crazy? 25% of my day.
Yeah.
6 hours, 24. 25% of my day is spent.
Bill Gates was spot on, wasn't he?
He wasn't wrong anyway.
Not to discard the fact as well that he's responsible for a lot of the fucking goddamn
WhatsApp
software and stuff.
WhatsApp took up 2 hours and 18 minutes of my time today. WhatsApp.
It's massive, isn't it?
Instagram.
And listen, and hang on a minute. We're not even. This is the off season. We're not even talking much football here. Imagine if football.
Now I had a good bit of work to do today on the phone. You know, off court work. Instagram, 2 hours and 10 minutes.
So I spend very little time on Instagram. Very little time.
Safari, which is, Google, obviously,
Mm.
an hour and 41 minutes. Because
You may as well get it built into your arm.
I'm a shopper, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I would spend my time when I'm on
You just love a bargain.
Safari.
You love a bargain.
I
You love a
do.
discount.
I absolutely do. Got two deliveries today. What do you get? Brody bought himself a new pair of football boots and gloves for the new season.
Nice.
Nice pink Nike boots and pink Nike gloves to match them. And Daddy got some Calvin Klein swimming shorts for holidays.
Very nice. Right. We'll get into the show then. So we have a nice show ahead here. We're going to do a preview for the Scotland-Germany game. Obviously, the opening game tomorrow night. Pretty excited about that. We're going to be giving our bets and beat the bookie. We picked out a few specials. We're going to be talking a number of transfers and get your thoughts on that as well. We're going to be talking about the diminishing situation of grassroots football in the UK. We're going to be talking about Brentford bringing down the price on Ivan Toney. What does that mean? We're going to be talking about the FA as well, looking at a successor for Gareth Southgate as well. Apparently, they already have a man in mind. I will get your thoughts on that. New rule also coming in tomorrow night from the refereeing point of view as well. We will discuss that as well. I don't know how easy it is to implement it. We had it already kind of in the Premier League. It started for a little while and then it kind of went away. And we're also going to start the show tonight, obviously, with Ten Hag stays and get your thoughts on that, the pros, the cons, all that kind of stuff. Let's just jump into the chat first before we start. Daz is there. Big up Daz, as always, supporting the channel.
Hey,
Baz is in as well. Baz Redden, how are you, my friend? Good to see
Captain
you.
Caramel.
Jack is back. Big up, Jack. Good to see you again.
The exam season must be over, Jack, is it?
He's kind of still slightly in it, as far as I know. It's pissing down in Liverpool. It's been lashing here all day like a storm.
Pissing down here all day as well, Jack.
I don't know if you've seen the videos of Ibiza and Mallorca and the airports and all. It's crazy. Absolutely flooded out. Jack's daily average is 2 hours.
Oh, Stephen.
Sorry, Stephen. Big up, Stephen. Good to see you again. Sorry. 2 hours. That's Stephen. That's nothing. That's lightweight compared to us guys. Lightweight. There you go. And I think you're the better end. Niall, new backdrop looks amazing, or looks lit. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate that.
Sure does.
England need 48 to win against Oman.
It's in the cricket.
In the cricket. It says 8 hours for me. Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? 8 hours. Transfer window open tonight. Officially opens tonight at midnight or tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That should be exciting. Dazzler, did you do the fantasy Euro League?
I didn't. I didn't, Daz.
So you have one more.
Thanks for reminding me. Did you, Daz, put that into the you put that into the WhatsApp group, didn't you?
I think I sent it on to you as well on WhatsApp, as far as I know. Yeah, I did. I put it into the WhatsApp group. Yeah, the upper tier one. So it's there. I hope England don't even make it out of the group. Good man, Stephen, get in there early. Jack, Klopp and his wife is at the Taylor Swift concert tonight.
Shall we touch base with some transfer news?
We will be going through transfer news.
This is hot off the press.
Go on, drop it there, then drop it like it's hot.
This is from one David Ornstein, who we know is pretty good value for money here. Liverpool and Manchester United.
Absolutely, yeah. I know where this is going.
Actively pursuing deal to sign Lenny Yoro from Lille. LFC and UFC see Real Madrid as favourites, but pushing hard for the 18-year-old centre-back, viewed as a unique market opportunity, separate to other targets. PSG also keen.
Apparently, the story the other day was he wants no one but Real Madrid and doesn't want to talk to anyone else. That's the talk. I believe we were linked.
Could you blame the kid?
Absolutely. Absolutely not. I heard earlier today as well, Liverpool, I think Ornstein and The Athletic were reporting on it, that Liverpool have expressed an interest in Joe Neves. But the release clause is massive. I think it's 120 million.
At Benfica?
Yeah, so I don't see it happening. Do not see it happening. Jack is in. I hope Tranmere are promoted next season. I made an edit about the Tranmere games I went to the other day. Nice. West Ham have signed an 18-year-old for 25 million.
That's right.
Very good. Interesting.
Guilherme is a left-sided attacker apparently he's one of the hottest prospects in Brazil at the minute, and this is a little bit of a coup for West Ham apparently.
Interesting. Right, let's get in. Let's start. Ten Hag stays. News came out the other evening that he's going to stay after this review, whatever that review was, and lots of other stories then as we expect the media to come out with all sorts of stuff like apparently the financial package that was being offered to other managers, they apparently laughed at it and all this kind of stuff. But we expect that kind of nonsense to come out at times as well.
And there's been a lot of it because we also saw his willingness to adopt Bruno Fernandes as a false nine in the FA Cup final, which was a tactical situation put out by Jason Wilcox, was what saved his job. Well, if that was the case, why didn't you hear that the day after the FA Cup?
Why were they interviewing other candidates?
Right, so let's...
It's all a bit sketchy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to have to call bullshit in a lot of this. Yeah. Listen, I think there's a couple of important things here. I think United absolutely went into the market to see what was there and what was available. I think having seen what was available and maybe after meeting a couple of the characters involved, i.e. Thomas Tuchel, they decided, I think with what we've got at the minute, it probably keeps us in a better stride, I think obviously the work he's done with the younger players, Willie Kambwala, Kobe Mainu, Alice Garnacho and stuff like that, will stand to him. United have always been about youth and about bringing through that youth and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of a shining light for him as well. And then I think if you look at the injury situation throughout the season, that's gotta have an impact on how things went for us as a club. I think if he has his full team available to him, I think we're having a completely different conversation. But he didn't, so it's hard to speculate. I'm delighted he's staying. As I said to you previously, I think there's an awful lot of things at the club that don't work. And I think, until they work, no matter who we put in as manager, it's not really going to give us the bump and the push that we need. I think the pillars behind them need to be built. The Dan Ashworth, the Omar Barada, the Jason Wilcox, we've just brought in the Arsenal team, doctor and physio and stuff like this to try and help out with the medical situation. So there's ground being made. Now, it's obviously not the kind of ground that a lot of fans will look at and go, they're huge strides forward. But if I consider having, a Dan Ashworth, having an Omar Barada, having a Jason Wilcox, along with an Eric Ten Hag, having players available week to week, shipping out a couple of pieces of that dead wood and getting some younger, hungrier players in the door, I think that puts us in a much stronger position going into next season. I think obviously the club will be looking to get back into Champions League. That'll be high on our list. I think if he's not in contention for Champions League by Christmas, I think he'll be gone, regardless of this new contract they're talking about. But I do think if he can put himself up in the top 2, 3, 4 places and be within touching distance going to January, it'll give him enough to get through to the end of the season and stuff like that. And again, picking up trophies always helps. He's won 2 major trophies in 2 seasons at Manchester United, something that a lot of managers haven't been able to do. So that's something that's very easily overlooked because people want to just say, oh, it was only a Carabao, it was only an FA Cup. There's generally only 4. If you're not playing in Europe, there's only 3 trophies you can win: your league title, your FA Cup, and your Carabao Cup. If you're playing in Europe, there's 4. He's won 25% of what's been put in front of him each season. That's a big, big step in the right direction for my money. And I know there's a lot of teams out there, i.e. the likes of Chelsea, the likes of Spurs, the likes of Arsenal, who would have given their left one for a trophy in the last couple of seasons,
Absolutely. I said it to you the day that the FA Cup final, I said I'd love to be at Wembley today.
Yeah.
Love to be at Wembley. So there's no doubt about that. And there's no doubt that winning the FA Cup, obviously hugely helped his cause. I think if he had lost the FA Cup, I think there would have been a part of the waves, to be honest with you. But I just think I mean, the only concern I've expressed on it is that the adjustment for him to move from being a manager who was heavily involved in the transfers, we know as part of his original contract, he had a veto on players and all, which obviously will get removed now with the new contract coming in, no doubt. And his adjustment to becoming a head coach and not actually a manager. And when people talk about the managerial market, yes, there's a Tuchel out there. Yes, there's a Poch out there or an Allegri or whatever it is. These guys are kind of managers. They're not actually head coaches. And that's why they didn't fit the
Oh,
plan of what United wanted, obviously.
I actually think him becoming more of a head coach will suit him and the team much better. Because I think he'll spend more time making the tactical changes and making adaptations to the squad and the playing style that you can't if you've got to do something else and your eye is somewhere else. I think with the shared responsibility, between himself and Barada and Ashworth and Wilcox, I think it's massive for him. I really, really do. I think
Mm,
to me, he's a guy we wanted to come in because we felt like he was a technical coach. And at times we weren't able to see that because he had to table and shoulder an awful lot of responsibility, because of how the club
mm,
was being run behind the scenes. Whereas I think when you alleviate a lot of that, it gives him the freedom to go and become that coach that we wanted to bring in.
mm. Yeah, well, I think for a number of years and there, or a lot of years since Alex left anyway, the manager has been that kind of shield for the Glazers
Yeah.
to protect themselves and suit themselves and obviously manipulate the market somewhat as well. But I think the only one concern I have about this, and I have a concern about this even in my own club, that if it does go south and if it does go wrong, you still have that card to turn around afterwards and say, well, they weren't my players. You know, that kind of way, and that's a little bit concerning for me. You know what I mean? Where at least
Yeah,
if
well,
you turn around, let's say
we've
you,
also
yeah,
heard, about him telling the guys positionally what he wants. So he'll say,
mm,
I need a centre back, and then the guys will go and draw up a list of 3 to 5 players, and then he of the 3 to 5 that have been drawn up will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5, yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
That's still having a big say in what you need and what you want.
But
You
it's
know,
having a say in someone else's list. Do you get me? It's your
I,
say in
I, I
terms of
know
the
what I
position.
know what yeah, I
You
know
know what I
that.
mean?
I get that. But I mean, you'd have to you'd have to believe and you'd have to put an awful lot of faith in the guys behind the scenes that they're extremely knowledgeable with what they're doing
Mm,
and that, you do your side of things. Plus, and I know this is something that was mentioned when Slot got the job at Liverpool. With obviously the way Liverpool are going to go about things, and the change in policy maybe, with recruitment. Liverpool wanted a manager who could make players better and who could coach players. I think that's something a lot has been lost in for a little while at times in football. When we look at guys, it's something I see massively at Arsenal. I see a lot of guys at Arsenal getting better individually.
mm,
And when individuals get better and when they work on their weaknesses, collectively the team gets an awful lot stronger. I
yeah.
saw that with Arsenal. I saw a lot of things at Arsenal where players got better at doing things. I haven't necessarily seen that at United. Like 2, 3 years ago, we spoke about Aaron Wan-Bissaka not being able to cross a road. But 3 weeks later, 3 weeks, 3 years later, we still have the same thing to say. Defensively, the guy is quite good in the one-on-one situation. He's got legs. He's got good ball control. His work in the final third is it's nothing short of abysmal. You
Mm,
know, and especially when we're playing teams at home who we need maybe someone to break the game down a little bit for us, get beyond that last defender. Why hasn't anyone just dragged them over there with bags and bags and bags of footballs and said, right, we stay here until you get better at this? That's such a basic thing for me. It really is. Um, you know what I mean? And that's the kind of thing, like at the start of the season, we said, well, Arsenal could struggle without a right back. Well, they made Ben White a right back. Look at him
mm,
marauding up and down the wing. His goals and assists towards the end of the season, they were as good as any fullback in the league. And defensively, he was always very, very strong. To turn Ben White into a right back through coaching and through, the system that he plays in and everything. I want to see that at my club. I think that's important.
Absolutely. But the guy on the screen has been there and could have done that and hasn't done it.
Well, and that's where I would say maybe,
Is
with
that where
everything
some of
else that
your
was
questions would lie?
some of them, but also
Mm.
I would say maybe with, again, as you talked about, him dealing with the overall situation at United, it becomes difficult to, maybe you think your coaches are working on something the way you want, but maybe it's not quite being done to the letter of the law because you're in an office talking about what's happening in January, or you're answering questions about the Glazers, or you're talking to a technical director
So
somewhere
distraction.
about another. There's a
Distraction.
lot of distractions at a club like Man United, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. And obviously, a lot of clubs are adopting this kind of structure and policy now. So we said when we got wind of a lot of this that like it's a watershed moment for football in terms of a changing of the guard at that level and stuff like that. So we shall see what happens. Keith is in. I think Liverpool need to get an out and out striker this summer and another centre back and quality midfielder. Quite the Christmas shopping list. Jackson, looking forward to the Euros. England won't win as they're shite, but I reckon Germany or France will. Germany ain't
Well,
getting a
Jack,
sniff.
if you think England won't win because they're shy, Germany won't even be in the fucking semis because they are proper shy, pal.
Eric Ten Hag is being sacked regardless of the result of the FA Cup, lads, saying it reported in multiple sources. Absolutely. And I think Stephen's been watching me on Twitter. I'm not too sure. But I made a point today when that article went up about the cost of bringing on a Tuchel or a Poch and that kind of thing. I made a
Mhm.
comment underneath it. I reposted it and I retweeted it or re-exed it or whatever you want to call it. And I put a comment underneath. It's not like Eric Ten Hag is on Sainsbury vouchers or something like that. So he must have been
Yeah.
watching my Twitter. Joanne's in. Hello, boys. Good on you,
Hey,
Joanne. Thanks
Joanne.
for joining us. And Jack again, I keep see we assigned a winger, midfielder, backup keeper, and left-footed centre back this summer. Good luck with that. Liked and shared as always. Appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Joanne.
Breaking Man United fan have agreed personal terms with Jared Braithwaite. Brandwaite. It should be Brandwaite. Yeah, absolutely. Man United. Um, Jack, I think we 20 or 25 goal striker as well. It's shown from last season. That would require quite a change as well because we don't necessarily play that way either, and I don't think Arnie does either. But we shall see. Aki's seriously saying, but the club are tight with money as we know, and it doesn't look like we are prioritising that this summer. Doesn't mean we won't sign one though, as we have seen past windows. We will not be signing a forward man unless the likes of a Mo Salah, a Luis Diaz, or a Darwin Núñez leaves the building. That's we are not pouring more money into that front line that's already in there at the moment and is heavily bloated. At Russell, likes it on with you, Noel. Mum said, "Oh, brilliant! Yeah, I love having Russ on. We had another great show again last night. He's a good guy. Love Russ. Make sure you're going over there and supporting him on Twitch and everything, folks, with his game and on the German. I think he's doing a watch along. I think for the England game or the German game. I think he was saying. I think Man U are still ways off getting back into the top four. Can't be ways off because they were in it the previous season." That team is not a proper team. It's just a bunch of egos and self-righteous who only look out for themselves and not the manager. Not necessarily correct. Definitely wouldn't agree with that either. I
No, I
think they
wouldn't
have
either,
shown.
if I'm honest.
You're talking about a team who went out in an FA Cup final there and put Man City to the sword, regardless of whether they were hung over that week or not. It's still a major trophy, and they would have still
And
wanted to
and to
win it.
and a team that have done that religiously when their manager's name has been touted as the next one on the chopping board. And we go
Mm,
as far back as last season when, we lost the first three games on the bounce and we had Liverpool coming to Old Trafford and it looked like this guy mightn't see game four and we put in a performance. And he's done it multiple times and so have the team. I think the team regularly dig in and fight for Ten Hag. I think at times I would agree with some of what Keith's saying is we're still not, as you would say, everybody's not pulling in the same direction. And I think some of that is part of the personnel. And I think when we see some of the players leave, and we bring in some younger, hungrier players, and I think when we get a little more of an ethos behind the scenes, I think that'll help the situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt there's players still there that would have been quite happy to see Ten Hag go and a new manager come in, because then they get another pass to restart the process again. So
Mhm.
now they're going to be under the microscope this year. But I don't think it's a very difficult season to judge. I say the same thing about Chelsea as well, and even ourselves. The level of injuries that we all had to withstand, and different back lines all the time. You don't Onana, and that's the pressure on Onana when he first came in, ever
Mhm.
changing back four. The same with ourselves, the volume of injuries that Chelsea had. It's a very hard season to judge the three teams, really. You know what I mean? And I think you'll see a much better situation next season if we can grab hold of those injuries and keep players fit. This Euros mascot is so short, you can tell they were lazy at designing it. It's been like that for a while now. France will win.
Nothing's ever gonna top the stick man from Italia '90.
Yeah, yeah,
Remember
absolutely.
him? That was
Yeah.
just epic.
Yeah, Noel, we are buying a wide player this summer, as Ornstein said it. Yeah, but I think he's saying that on the basis, Jack, of a player exiting. It's not just going to be dropped in there for the sake of it. Elise
Well,
is one of them on the list.
I think the likelihood is Luis Diaz does leave, though, right?
Yeah, I don't think there will be any change up front. If you look at those 5 or 6 players we have up front, plus the sprinkling of youth we have in the background, unless someone exits the building, unless it's a Salah or a Diaz or a Nunez or a Jota or whatever it is, there's no way we're dropping another player in there. And it certainly won't be. Where Elise could come in, and maybe Elise, is he going to come in to replace Salah? Is he going to come in to play right in behind him and challenge him? What is it? And I don't see Elise, to be honest, going to Liverpool anyway, but who's interested in him, being to me quite honest. I think the only way Elise comes into Liverpool is if Mo Salah exits the building, because he will want to start and play. Even if Luis Diaz and Salah still stay, we will be signing a forward. No, it's not going to happen. First of all, I don't see where the cash is going to come from.
I don't think with Jota and with Gakpo as well and Diaz,
No.
and then some of the younger lads who will look to try and
Yeah,
get time, the
you've
Jaden
bent out
Dans
there,
and the
Jantans, and
Kumas, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
Cade Gordon. Like,
There's a lot there. I think money would be far better spent, as you yourself and Dean spoke about, in the left back slot.
hmm,
Another right back, all across that back line, really. The back four, the goalkeeper, and again another maybe defensive midfielder. But I think like a lot of what you guys do higher up the pitches is quite good at times. I think sometimes you can be a bit panicky because maybe you're worried about what's going on behind. But I think if you solidified and close that back four up a little bit and start keeping a few clean sheets, you'd start nicking games 1-0 a lot more regularly than you do.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, it was an indifferent season. It was Klopp's last season. The boys were carrying the baggage of that. I see those
Absolutely.
boys. I could see the looks of Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz coming back way more refreshed, with a more open way of playing, with more confidence. And like, look at Darwin Núñez for Uruguay at the moment. Outstanding. You know what I mean? There's no reason why he can't do that for Liverpool. Tomorrow, then a quiz, Niall, and then clash on Saturday. Yeah, it's a great weekend coming up as well. Steve McLaren couldn't coach school children, never mind United first team. I think that's a little bit disingenuous
Yeah,
as well, to be honest.
I think you're miles out there.
Yeah. At Aces, will we see Uncle Howdy this weekend? I think
No.
it's the talk is Monday, isn't it?
Yeah.
As I absolutely KO'd. I have no interest in both, Alice. Niall, I will even send you. I'm not doubting the tweet, Jack. I'm not doubting the tweet from Ornstein at all. I'm just telling you now, I don't know how you drop another player into that melting pot that's already there. I just don't
And as
see how
Ted
it
said
works.
earlier, this is David Ornstein, who, we do respect and stuff like that, but these guys do get things wrong. David
Yeah,
Ten Hag was out the door. He was going to be replaced. It was going to be
yeah.
Thomas Tuchel. It was this, it was that. It was, do you know what? Of all the things that could have gone wrong, for me, the massive one would have been Thomas Tuchel. Like, when we dodged that bullet, if Ten Hag stayed, if Pochettino came in, if fucking Kieran McKenna came in, nothing was ever going to be as bad for me personally as Thomas Tuchel. So I am so glad we swerved that.
Yeah, Thomas Tuchel is not a guy who likes to be told what to do.
No,
So to try and fit into that, and see, that's why we talk about the managerial market. A lot of these clubs are not looking for managers anymore in that kind of vein. They're looking for
I
head
would
coach.
I
So
would go as far as saying he's a salty little sauerkraut.
yeah, Absolutely. And I think the interesting one, he obviously put his foot in his mouth when he mentioned Rudiger in the interview, when they had already stated that one of their policies was no Galacticos and all this kind of thing. And also, obviously, he messed up big time there. So, Thomas, if you're listening, brush up on your interview skills and do more research in future because you messed up. That's it. Southgate will be United's manager sooner than later. Could be the case. Could be the case.
We shall see.
So that will take us nicely into the next topic. The FA have been, there's talk about Southgate that this will be his last tournament. He has a contract, I think, till December. But I think he stated himself that if he doesn't win, this would be his last tournament as well. So the talk is that the succession plan is, this is the talk. Talk to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I did see, obviously, the lad from the FA spoke about it today, and he spoke about having a succession plan in place, but he did also say that would have a little bit to do with drawing up a candidate pool. Now, I've no doubt Eddie Howe would be high on that list. And to be honest with you, I couldn't really see past him, if I'm honest. I think that would be a really good appointment. I think if we look at what he's done at Newcastle and what he's doing at Newcastle, I think he's a phenomenal manager. He's a really, really talented young English manager, and certainly more. I think he's got a completely different attacking style to Southgate would have, and I think if you gave, Eddie Howe, Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Harry Kane, Anthony Gordon, Bukayo Saka, you could see fireworks. You could see genuine fireworks, and this guy could take them to the moon. It's been the one thing.
We've missed you, Jack. We've missed you.
The one thing I would say is, I don't know how interested England would be having Jason Tindall as the assistant coach, because this guy's different gravy altogether, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
He really is. Now, by the way, I can see him and Tyndall standing on the sideline in the Three Lions tracksuits, absolutely belting out "God Save the King." Like, no better boys than these two lads. I'd say they would be as proud as punch,
Yeah. Aces, Crystal Palace new home kit is classic retro jersey. It is. Darren said
phenomenal.
To me, we're going to be going through next week's show, folks. We're going to be going through. The week after, because you're not here next week. Yeah, so the week after that.
Don't do the kits without me now, Niall.
I can't do them on my own anyway. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Don't do the kits without me.
But we are going to be talking about the Crystal Palace kit tonight. Don't worry about that. But not the way you would think. If Southgate doesn't get England over the line in this tournament, do you think Eddie Howe is the guy who could potentially do it?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I think he has a really good style of play. I think he plays a nice brand of football. I think at times, one of the things I would say is he doesn't necessarily have the squad available to him at Newcastle, whereas I think at England that would be the opposite. Hang on, go back to that one, will you?
Taylor Swift
seats, what the club have supplied, looks shocking. The prices people are paying. They're sitting at the side of the stage and behind it. So we have a Taylor Swift fan in the other room, Tallulah, and it was her birthday in April. And when the Taylor Swift tickets came out, she wasn't a Taylor Swift fan. She kind of hadn't really pinned her flag to the mast at that stage, This was last year when they came out. So, of course, lo and behold, this year, the birthday comes along and everything's Taylor, as if she's our best pal, and they're going, fucking hell, man, how am I going to get these tickets? So we're still doing a bit of searching for tickets, but I was looking on StubHub, and she's playing 3 nights in Anfield, tonight, tomorrow night, and Saturday night. And I'm laughing at what Jack was saying. There is tickets for Saturday night's gig. I think they're about €320 a pop, and you're sitting behind the stage. Behind it. I shit you not, you are sitting behind the fucking stage.
Well, some people might turn around and say that sitting behind might give you the better view, but I'm just putting
Oh,
that out there. Did you see the
I'm
story that broke last week about the girl who was ill, who was given 2 complimentary tickets?
no
Yeah, apparently she was given 2 complimentary tickets to go, and the promoter took them back. Girl who was
right.
sick. Yeah, really, really bad press last week. I seen it out there. It was all
Where
over
was this
Twitter.
for?
I presume it was for. I'm assuming it was for the Liverpool gigs. I'm
Now
assuming.
she was in Scotland at the weekend, so it could have been there.
Yeah. Maybe I'm not too sure. I
Last
didn't look at
Sunday
where
night
it
she
was. I
was
didn't look at the
in.
actual gig.
Last Sunday night was she in Hamden? She might have been in
Mm.
Hamden last Sunday night. She was
Mm.
definitely somewhere in Scotland. Could have been the Hydro even. Might have been the Hydro. But I did see the tickets at Anfield were behind the stage, and they're nearly 350 nicker. Fuck it out.
Listen, that's what we do, isn't it? Right, let's
That's
talk about this new rule coming in starting tomorrow night. It's kind of not really new, but apparently it is that only the captains can address the referee, and that the referee, anyone else who addresses the referee, will be carded. So it might be worth doing a carded bet.
it was so I thought about this already. Who's the most likely candidate to be booked in every group game on the basis that he's not the captain of his national team and he's going to get a card?
Bruno?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Ronaldo's the captain there.
And that's going to kill the games as well, because then these guys are going to be on tender hooks. What happens if you go in on this guy here and he gives you a card? And what happens if you get upended in a tackle and you jump up and have a go off the ref again? You're going to get another yellow and get sent off?
I think there's got to be a certain level of real world about this. Like,
Intelligence.
yeah, like, we got to remember there's an awful lot of stupid footballers, and while they will understand, I've got to maybe step off the gas here a little bit. I think for them not to query certain things at all is quite difficult. Like, if somebody fouls me and I don't get the foul, am I looking at my captain saying, you go and ask him the question? Or do I go, ref, what's the story? Any chances here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's...
If you remember in the early stage of last season, this was a directive as well from the PGMOL, remember? To the
Yeah.
referees. And the instant they put it in there, I think they ran it for about a month, and the bookings just went through the roof.
Yeah.
And it just spoiled a lot of the games and stuff like that and all. And we would hope as well at a tournament that the magnitude of the Euros, because you really have the Euros and the World Cup, really, they stand there, and then you've Copa America and the AFCON and all the other stuff. But the level of officiating at this should be heavy duty, should be high bar,
Oh, I got to
And
be honest, and I may get the stick over this one. Me personally, I expect the level of refereeing at the Euros to be the best in the world of any of the competitions. Because I think at the World Cup, you can get dragged into having referees and officials from lesser nations because it's the World Cup and stuff like that. And then you're going to have gaffes here and there. This is the Euros. Generally, the standard of refereeing around Europe should be of a decent level. We can't say, your man was from here, I was from the... This should be the pinnacle of refereeing. I'll be a bit put out now if the standard is subpar, because it shouldn't be, especially with the automated offside rule as well. This is going to give us this 25-second answer instead of 75 seconds. So it's going to do it in a third of the time, which should keep the game flowing a lot more. And if they can just keep like this, the players' descent and stuff like that, and check a little bit, it could lead to some really good football,
Yeah, absolutely. But I just hope they don't necessarily take this to the ladder of the law and just start spoiling games. Because yourself, once you book a player, you're somewhat nearly taking them out of the game somewhat, But it'd be interesting.
Well, it means if he makes a tackle, and even if it's borderline, you have a question to answer.
And And
which is
especially with VAR as
sad.
well. If you're going to a VAR review, you're going to get the response, aren't you? But it'll be
Yeah,
interesting. It'll be interesting to see tomorrow night, because I would expect Germany and Scotland to be quite a feisty game as well.
100%.
This is something we want to touch on, because we know this is something that's close to both of us in terms of local grassroots football and stuff like that. Since 2010, nearly 1,000 council-owned football pitches have disappeared off the map, and 271 in Scotland in that 14-year period as well. And Rachel Harrison, the GMB's national secretary, said the England and Scotland men's teams are about to begin their European Championship campaigns with the hopes of the nations resting on their shoulders. Yet before a ball is even being kicked, the next generation of footballers have already lost. Losing almost 1,000 council football pitches could crush grassroots football.
I do have an opinion on this. And the first opinion on this is football and politics doesn't mix. So, don't try and bring football in to further your argument about the state of housing and, the use of zoned land and stuff like that. That's I'm not
You
listening to that.
can't have one hand here and one hand here and then complain somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely. But the other thing I would say, and here's something I know I've seen in my own area, and I'm sure you've seen this yourself out your neck of the woods. I imagine there has been grassroots pitches lost. But how many of these 5G AstroTurf pitches have popped up around the country in the last number of years and have play on them almost 7 nights a week? You know what I mean? With teams training multiple hours a day, and the pitch obviously in much better condition because it's not getting hacked up from the weather and stuff like that. So I think facilities are changing as well. And when land is so unavailable at times, it's much easier. Like if you've got 2 football pitches and I decide to take one of the pitches and create a housing development out of it, but with the other pitch I turn it into an AstroTurf, that it's actually available more hours of the day and more days of the year because they'll never be waterlogged or called off or anything. What's the issue?
Yeah, I think that carries a bit of a weight of the argument. I don't necessarily think, that's the overriding case, if you like, here. You know what I mean? So
No.
it is an interesting one to look at, though. And obviously, myself and yourself very passionate about underage and grassroots football and all that kind of stuff, and how important
we should just mention we're very passionate about underage football, by the way, just in case anyone gets the wrong message.
I think it would be around my dad's 80th time going to Anfield, which is crazy. Big up. England won by 8 wickets. Big up, Daz.
Nice.
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting one, because that seems like a huge amount of pitches and stuff like that, And
well, if now again, 1,000 pitches probably sounds quite big in an island the size of Ireland. But when we're talking about the UK and we talk about the fact that there's almost 60 million people in the UK, is 1,000 pitches a huge loss?
It is if it's your pitch.
Absolutely, but I don't imagine, clubs that lost pitches were left with no facilities whatsoever, or weren't left with a shiny new Astro, or weren't left with, okay, we're going to reconfigure your pitches where you had 4, but you only have the sustainability for 2. I don't imagine there's lots of places in the UK struggling for somewhere to train or play games on.
Yeah, possibly. We don't. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know really as well. I mean, obviously, a lot of clubs, especially through the COVID period and stuff like that, would have struggled as well financially and all. Even those junior clubs and stuff like that and all, it was a real tough time for people and stuff. So we shall see, but we will keep an eye on it, because we do like to we do like to see the structure of potentially the future of what's coming through and stuff like that and all, you know. You sent me through a picture of the Crystal Palace kit today and how lovely it was. And I think every
I sure
season
did.
since we've been doing the podcast, we've been big fans of the Crystal Palace kit. It seems to be the
And
nicest familiar of the year.
and would you believe Andrew's on his holidays? He's in Fuerteventura at the minute, and he's probably had a day at the pool or whatever. And out of nowhere this afternoon, I got a message from him, and it read, "Diddly dee. They've just changed their kit, and yet again, it's going to be the best looking in the league. That new Palace kit is fire." That's exactly what he said.
And if he's really interested, probably just up the road from him, there's a market that probably still has Wilfred Zaha on the back of it. There you go. Just a heads up, Andrew, if you're listening. But this came up in conversation today. This Net 88, and also the DBet one, the two sponsorships that have come to light in terms of Wolves and in terms of Crystal Palace. At a time where there's a directive there at the moment that all betting sponsors are going to come off the kits from the 26-27 season. So
25-26.
No, it's 26-27.
No, sure. The thing you sent me earlier says it, didn't it?
Yeah, no, it says it's from the 26. It's 2 years from now. So it's the 26-27 season. I checked it. I was reading other articles this evening. They've given them something like either 2 or 3 years grace on it from when they instigated the white paper, which was a year ago.
Yeah, so on this one here, yeah, it says the clubs have collectively agreed to ban gambling sponsorship on their shirts from the end of the 25-26 season.
Yeah, that's the end. So it'll be the 26-27 season that you're going into where it goes.
But
that's what
clubs are allowed to secure new deals until that deadline, which means if I sign a deal in, May of 2026 and it's a 3-year deal, I carry that sponsorship for 3 years, even as a gambling company.
I don't think that's the case.
That is the case. It's absolutely the case.
I thought it was gone from 26-27.
The case. Yeah, but any deals that are in place prior to that.
Well, then, but these two deals here on this screen are only for 2 years.
These two. But if somebody else has to go into the well.
But then if the idea of doing this, why would you only sign a 2-year deal? Why don't they just sign a 5-year deal?
Well, maybe the companies in the background don't have the money to facilitate that. Or maybe Palace and Wolves are thinking, it's a record short deal for us. But in a couple of years' time, that could be even bigger, especially when you take off a lot of these betting companies, right?
Yeah, the way I read it was that the cutoff is the 26-27 season, and they couldn't secure a new deal going into that season. That's why these deals are only 2 years.
No, they can, from the start of the 26-27 season, they can't partner with any betting company. But if the partnership has happened prior to that and the deal carries them over, that's okay.
But you're not allowed to wear the sponsor on the jersey. They're banned from the jersey.
If it's been signed.
That's not the way I read it. We'll go back and look at it, but that's not the way I read it. The way I read it was no betting companies will be allowed to be displayed on the kit.
Well, if the deal has been signed, the league can't necessarily stop it. Because, again, it would be a legally binding contract.
Well, they can because that's where they said. I thought that was the whole idea of the white paper that gave you the 3 years. But they've given 3 years.
That's where they're saying, here's the cutoff, right? You can't agree to have anyone on your jersey after this date. So anything you sign, you can sign before that, and it will overlap it. But from then, any new deal cannot be a betting company.
Well, that's not the way. The way I read it was that from the 26-27 season, no betting companies are allowed to appear on the official jersey kits. That's the way I read it. So I don't think
so.
If that was the case, I'd be very surprised if these are only signing 2-year deals.
Well, they've only signed 2 now anyway. You know what I mean? But again, most of those clubs, Wolves, Palace, stuff like that, wouldn't get much longer out of a deal because, again, the sponsors are probably looking, going, we're not spending a record amount of money here if these guys are going to be in the Championship.
Yeah, but there's obviously clauses within the contract if the relegation was to happen and stuff like that. They're always safeguarded. They're not that naive. What did you make of these coming in though? These are two Vietnamese
I hadn't
gambling.
realised. It was
Yeah,
only when we spoke about it and I sent you the pictures and you were like,
mm,
oh, did you hear anything about these lads? And I was like, no, I haven't. And that's when the messages started going back and forward, and we were like, oh, look at this, look at this. And so yeah, there's it's very strange going on at 888, isn't it? Net 88. Very
yeah,
strange going on. They don't have
mm,
a website. Like, to think you've just signed a multi-million-dollar contract with a Premier League team to have your name across the front of them, and you don't have an active and running website that's the
yeah.
next level of sketchy shit now.
And not only that, at a time where obviously sponsorships and stuff are in the spotlight at the
Yes.
moment, obviously with the city
Third party
situation
in the
and
City
everything else and
situation.
all that.
Absolutely.
It's very, very strange, and I mean, I presume these deals are looked at by the Premier League as well.
You
But it,
would like to think so, but I think
yeah,
having looked at
based
certainly
on
Palace's
previous,
deal, maybe they haven't been.
yeah, based on previous, yeah, it seems very, very strange. And
They
again, it's
just
all
might be
alleged.
very busy with the City gig, you know.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe they ain't got
Lads,
the wedge to
whatever
go
you want to
legal
do
on anyone
behind the
else.
scenes, whatever you want to do behind the scenes, away you go. We're too busy dealing
Yeah.
with City and their shit show.
Yeah, my biggest concern is what happens to some of these clubs who have a lot of the betting kind of stuff, sponsorship. What is going to happen in 2 years' time and stuff like that, because you're not going to replace the wedge you're getting off Net 88 with B&Q or Morrison's or whatever it
No,
is. You
but
know what I mean?
there's so many global companies
Mm,
that will get involved. You know, like, look at United, obviously coming into this season. We all of a sudden have Snapdragon, which,
mm,
not a lot of people would have heard of 2-3 years ago. And now all of a sudden it's the main shirt sponsor on one of the biggest clubs in the world. So I don't think it'll be a difficulty finding it. Like, I mean,
mm,
even with these guys here, these betting companies, I haven't heard too much about either of them. So
mm.
there are big companies out there who make big money, and this would fall into line for them, but we just don't. We're just not familiar with them, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very, very interesting. But again, it's kind of when you look at it, it's just very, very strange when you look at it. It just it stinks of the sweet shop, doesn't it, or the PO box?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, it
allegedly.
does.
We'll keep an eye on it as well because we report on this stuff. We don't shy away from this stuff. Next up, want to talk about Ivan Tony. Big fans of him, of course. And speaking of betting, and Hollywood bets on the
We
front of the
segued
shirt.
into that nicely, didn't we?
We did, didn't we? Brentford are lowering the price on the asking price on Ivan Tony. It was up around the 80 mark, believed to be now in around the 60 mark. As Arsenal and Manchester United circle, always the good headlines that come out at this time of
What
year and stuff like that.
what I would say is they should keep lowering.
So, question for you:
Yeah.
what do you make of this Ivan Tony situation at Brentford? Obviously, we've seen social media posts, we've seen various other things. He came back in January, and they
Mhm.
kind of went on a kind of a slide down through the table. And at times, Thomas Frank benched him as well. What do you think of that relationship there with Brentford and Ivan Tony and the price being
I
reduced?
think it's been a difficult relationship since, obviously him getting the ban and stuff like that. I imagine
Mm,
from the club side, they feel extremely let down when they lose their headline act, at a time when they need him more than ever. You know what I mean?
mm,
So there's probably a bit of frustration there from the club side. And then, I'd say when Tony came back and he was being muted about heading here and heading there, and it looked like Brentford maybe priced him out of a move, then there was possibly a lot of frustration on his side.
mm,
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of a clear the air talks here, for Tony and for Brentford, um, for Tony to go off and maybe get a couple of games and a couple of goals for England, and for Brentford to get something like what they're looking for Ivan Tony, and for him to be able to head along and head somewhere else and put himself in a better kind of a spot than he's in now, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
It's going to be
Tottenham would be a great show for him.
yeah.
I think Tottenham would be a phenomenal show for him.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about it. Will Smith. Will Smith. Right. Let's talk. Let's talk transfers. I picked out a
Let's,
few today. Of course, you can add a few in if you want. We're always
yeah,
open to that. Let's start. John Duran
yeah,
potentially linked with a 40 million move to Chelsea.
yeah, and obviously there was links the other way with Aston Villa and Conor Gallagher. And then the talk on the table was, well, Gallagher's going to be part of the John Duran deal. And then there was, well, no, we want to keep Gallagher and sign him up for even longer than he got on the contract at the minute. So Chelsea were linked with Duran in January when they were looking for a striker, but didn't manage to get things over the line. He got a few goals near the end of the season, and I think he's a kind of well thought of kid. You know, this young Colombian kid still making waves in the Premier League, obviously, since joining from the MLS and stuff like that. But I think he'd be a good addition to Chelsea. I don't necessarily think he's going to be their out and out number 9 week in, week out, but I do think he would do a job for them there. You know,
Is he, from what you've seen on the Chelsea project last year, with Madueke and Jackson and all the Mudryk and all these players and all, is he kind of what they need, or do they need something different, or is he
I think
more of
he's
the
very
same?
similar to. Yeah, I think he's very similar to what they have. But
So
again, if
is
that's the
that how
route
they
they're
is that
going
the way they
down,
should go? With what they've
you
seen this season?
know, listen, if I'm looking at it and I'm Chelsea, I want a slightly more experienced number 9 with what's around. Excuse me. With what's around him in the team, you know, a Madueke and a Mudryk and stuff like that, and a Cole Palmer. I probably want somebody a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and a little bit more clinical, maybe, than a John Duran. But it would also tie in with their way of thinking from a transfer point of view. Like, they are starting to build a profile here, Chelsea, with the kind of players they like to sign. Do you know what I mean? They are going back to that stage where they're signing a lot of young, very, very promising footballers, with the hope, I would imagine, of being able to double or treble their money on them. That's a
Yeah.
big ask in today's market.
Well, it's a big
But
ask
that's
in
what it
this one, with him
seems
being
to
valued
be.
at 40 million as well. That's a
Yeah,
big ask,
yeah.
isn't it?
40's I think Villa paid 16 to 18 for him. Like, if Villa doubled up to 35 and then Chelsea were looking to double to sort of 70,
Yeah.
that's a big step. You're gonna have to see that kid take huge strides down the road to get that
At,
kind of a return on him.
at some point in this Chelsea plan, do you feel they have to actually think about their own squad instead of sell-on value and actually competing for trophies and,
Yeah.
all that kind of thing under Marasca, rather than, like, I
Oh,
looked at this link with Duran the other day and I was thinking, okay, you bring on Nicholas Jackson. Nicholas Jackson's playing. You sub Nicholas Jackson on. You bring Duran on. What's the difference in
yeah.
reality?
Well,
You know.
you get fresher legs. You know, at times you dovetail. If somebody's not performing at the level, you can swap guys in and out and stuff like that. And it
Mm,
does give you two guys that you would say are quite similar in what they do, with how they run the channels and how they hold the ball up and they're finishing and stuff like that. So it with with Nicholas Jackson, it is like for like, so it does allow them to play a system. And if Jackson is your 9, Duran's your guy who comes in to replace him. If that's for the last 25 minutes, you need a goal, or if that's in
mm.
a Carabao Cup game or an FA Cup game, I think it's not a bad transfer in that sense. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I just said, rather than Chelsea sometimes focusing on what the resale value in the future will be, I'd like them to focus on Chelsea being that team in the moment sometimes as well. So we've had an awful lot of
Absolutely.
that. The boy underneath him, Lunin, who we've been pretty impressed with this season for Real Madrid, played in most of the Champions League bar the final. Got taken out of the final, obviously, with Courtois going back in,
Yeah.
which was kind of harsh, but we can understand it. What do you make? He's been linked with Arsenal. Could you see Arsenal
Um,
going into another goalkeeping change this summer
well,
as
I mean,
well?
they will. They absolutely will, because they sold Matt Turner last year to Forest, and Aaron Ramsdale will 110% leave the Emirates this summer. So they are going to need a goalkeeper. The problem is, I don't know if you're Andre Lunin. Are you going to Arsenal play back up to David Raya?
Absolutely not.
So, and
And
they
if you're David
the,
Raya, are you wanting to become the number two after the problems you had in your previous club, kind of being
so
benched?
that's
Yeah.
huge.
Mm.
That would be huge for me. I don't think Lunin would. Don't think that'd be on his modus. I think if you look around Europe, there's lots of teams that could do with a good goalkeeper. Arsenal linked with the Porto number one, Diogo Costa. There's no way Arsenal are spending that kind of dollar on Diogo
No.
Costa, although he would be a superb signing. It's not happening.
Mm. Let's talk about Bruno Guimaraes at Newcastle.
Yeah.
And apparently Man City have entered the interest in this guy, and we know that apparently at Newcastle, one of the big boys potentially has to go. By the looks of things, now whether
Yeah.
that's Bruno Guimaraes or whether it's Alexander Isaac or whoever you want to put into
Oh,
that bracket.
I got to be honest. I think goals are a commodity at the minute that are very hard to replace.
Mm.
Um, I think if you're Newcastle, you replace Bruno Guimaraes quicker than you replace Alexander Isak. For me
Yeah,
personally, and
yeah,
that's
no, I
not to
agree.
say he's not a super footballer. And I think he would be phenomenal at Manchester City either way. I think he
Yeah,
will be phenomenal. Um, I would, and I don't know how Newcastle would feel about it. The boy Nunes, Mateus Nunes, that was linked with you guys last year,
yeah.
came to City. Things haven't really struck it off. Can I get the boy Nunes out the door at City plus cash for Guimaraes?
As part of the deal.
Because I think if you're in Newcastle and you can get the boy Nunes in to replace him, and you can get 20 to 30 million to help with profit and sustainability, that's a fucking no-brainer, right?
I suppose it depends on where you are with your PSR situation and
Yeah,
how heavily weighted you are to the cash situation as
yeah,
opposed to. I
absolutely.
mean, if you're Eddie Howe was saying potentially yeah all day, but he probably wouldn't want to lose Bruno in the first place. But if you're
He
resided and you have to
absolutely
do it,
doesn't. Yeah,
yeah,
listen, he doesn't. Of course, he doesn't want to lose him.
mm,
He's one of his best players. But I think if you're Eddie Howe and somebody's got to leave the building here, and there's only a couple of players that have the kind of value that
mm,
we would need to get out the door. I think if you're looking for a replacement, the boy Nunes has got to be someone where you go, actually, hold on a minute here. Like, City are going to offer us 60 to 70 million. Well, we'll take the boy Nunes and we'll take 30 million, and the job's a good one for everyone.
yeah, sounds like
You know?
it could be a good deal. And I think obviously the boy Mateus Nunes under Eddie Howe might have a fresh lease of life as well.
Absolutely. And
So
he's going to get game
interesting.
time because he's going to take that position that Bruno Guimaraes
Yeah,
has exited.
yeah,
And we know that's what the kid needs. He just
mm,
hasn't had game time at City to
yeah,
build up,
yeah.
the portfolio that he did at Wolves, say.
And probably the money you would get in for Alexander Isaac, you're probably going to nearly have to spend most of that to replace what he brings to you anyway if you're going out into
Absolutely
the
are.
market.
I think Isaac is
Because
unbelievable.
forwards are
Really do.
massive. Forwards are massive at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about Douglas Luiz. We spoke about this during the week, me and you, and we were talking
Hmm.
about the Aston Villa deal and stuff like that, and how it would shape up, and how the money going to Man City on the back of this deal, and how that would flesh out and all. I think we're going to set overall probably a good deal for Aston Villa. Did we arrive at that? Was that our thinking?
Yeah, like, I think it's not an awful deal for them. They look like they're going to get the boy Samuel Illing Jr. in, who can play in a number of positions. He can play left back. He can play down the left side as a left-sided forward. He's a young English player. He's very creative. You
Big of
know,
bonkers.
he's a quick, physical kind of a kid. He's exactly what Villa will look for. He'll pad that squad out. Also, Weston McKennie. McKennie will come in and play in the Douglas Luiz role. Will he do it to the standard of Douglas Luiz did? Absolutely not. But he will come and, you're kind of swapping like for like, as we said with the Bruno Guimaraes and the Matheus Nunes thing. But you're helping your own profit and sustainability. Plus, you're probably keeping your wage bill down. And you're also at Aston Villa padding that squad out for 50 to 55 games this season coming.
Yeah, that's what we spoke about. Having Champions League football is
Yeah.
absolutely massive. And we actually said, I think the conversation we had was they're going to have to look at all these games and find some sort of priority within what their targets are
100%.
for the season. Let's talk about Mason Greenwood, linked
Yeah.
with a move to Juventus.
Yes.
The deal I seen seemed like a really, really good deal for United. It wasn't 50 million, it was 30 million with add-ons, but it also included what was it? There was a 20%, a 25% sell-on clause, and there was also a first refusal buyback as well. Give me your thoughts on that, Mason Greenwood.
Yeah, listen. I think he'll exit the building. I don't think he's leaving for 30 million. Even with the sell-on clause and the first refusal and stuff, I think United will want more than that, because I think with the state of our profit and sustainability, I think we need as much money through the doors now to balance the books. 25% down the line, 2 seasons time, doesn't maybe do an awful lot for us when we need to make changes now. So I think he'll look to try and get something closer to 50, I would imagine. And I think if they get him out for 50, they'd be more than happy to revoke any sort of sell-on clause or any sort of first refusal,
Yeah, absolutely. But certainly it would be a kind of an outside kind of headache that needs to be resolved anyway, that's hanging
It's
there.
another headache gone out the door.
Yeah.
And I think if he takes his buddy Jadon Sancho with him, there's 2 headaches left the building for, somewhere between 80 and 100 million euro. That's a huge win for us at Man United. Huge.
Acers, you can be guaranteed Sean Dyche is certainly not driving Brantwaite to United for a medical. Sean Dyche will not want to lose Brantwaite in any shape, form or fashion. Everton would be in the Championship this season without Brantwaite last season. Let's be clear about that. Sean Dyche doesn't want to lose that boy at all. They have no choice. Let's round it out then. Eberechi Esse, heavily linked with Spurs. Apparently Spurs have done a lot of background work on this guy already. They were close, I think, to signing him. I think around the January window, but I think he got injured or something like that.
This is a great deal for Spurs. This is exactly what Spurs want in that midfield and in that creative, say, number 10 role. We know how good this kid is. We know how good he's been. If you add him into the pot with a Son and a Madison, a Kulishevsky, and obviously at the back they've got the boy Van de Ven and Dragusin and Romero and stuff. Spurs are starting to build that kind of a squad, that robust sort of a squad, and build down the spine that Angel look for this season. I think if Spurs have a good window, I think it makes it more difficult for the likes of us and Newcastle and Chelsea to think about getting back into that Champions League spot. Because I think if I'm looking at it right now, okay, the likelihood is, for me, City and Arsenal are 2 shoe-ins, right? Which means the rest of us are going to fight for 2 spots. Now, I personally believe Aston Villa are going to fall off the face of the earth. And I've spoken to you about this. I think they're going to, I think the amount of games they'll have to play and with the profit and sustainability stuff, I think they're going to fall like a stone.
And the squad. We spoke about the squad.
And the squad, absolutely. I think if Villa finish top 10 this year with everything they've got going on, it'll be another good year at the club for Unai Emery. I know a lot of Villa fans don't want to hear that, but I just think with what European football does, especially this season, when you think of the Champions League going to 8 games in the group stage, and there's a whole lot to go on. I think Villa are out of the mix. I think obviously Liverpool, there's going to be a huge transition there with Slot, with playing style and personnel and stuff like that. So they're kind of an unknown quantity to a degree. I think you could say something similar about Chelsea, obviously with Maresca coming in. So I think Spurs, with a good transfer window, get another couple of boys out. Obviously, Tanganga is left. There's talks of the boy Emerson Royale heading to AC Milan. You get a couple of these guys out that maybe you don't want to see in the team week to week or even on the bench, and you fill a couple of 3-4 more spots with guys that you do want. I think Spurs get closer to that third spot, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and obviously that second year of experience in the Premier League for Ange
Absolutely.
Postecoglou as well will be absolutely huge as well. So
Yeah.
be interesting to see. And certainly this guy as an addition would be absolutely huge and will
Massive.
somewhat send a statement as well. And he's very much, when you look at him play as well, with what Glasner's done at Crystal Palace, which is going to be tough for him, obviously, because he's losing a couple of real nice crown jewels there as well, But
he is, but he'll be well compensated is the only thing. So he should be able to go into the market and replace them. He's already, I would think he's probably already replaced Eberechi Eze. And that's with Daichi Kamada, who they look to be signing from Lazio. He's a guy who played under Oliver Glasner at Eintracht Frankfurt when they went to the Europa final. And he then moved from Frankfurt to Lazio. He was linked with a lot of clubs. He was linked with Milan. He was linked with United. He was a guy in the kind of Shinji Kagawa mold, a midfielder who likes to kind of play on the break, heading forward and stuff like that. A really tidy, quite a creative player. Now, things didn't work out for him in Italy at all at Lazio. He didn't get anywhere near the game time. But obviously the pace of play there is very, very different. I expect this guy I expect Kamada under Oliver Glasner to be back to his days at Eintracht Frankfurt. And this could be a very astute signing if they manage to get him over the line. And if he comes in, in the free bracket, this is, you're getting 50 to 60 for Eze, and you're replacing him with a guy like Kamada who's costing you buckshy, basically, And
obviously that work rate of SA going into Spurs as well will give them a lift as well, because you'll notice for the back end of this season when the wheels came off at Spurs, they'd quite a flat, non-energetic kind of midfield, really, you know what I mean? So
I think it's the one area, especially the centre midfield with the likes of Hallberg and stuff like that. Like, if I look at Spurs, I don't necessarily see a centre midfielder and go, he's nailed on every week, like would happen at other clubs. You've got your Rodri and your De Bruyne at City, you've got your Odegaards and your Rice at Arsenal. At Tottenham, it was kind of like, well, he might play Sarr, he'll probably play Bentancur, he could play,
I suppose Bentancur was probably that guy prior to the injury, wasn't he? And then he came back off the injury and hasn't quite been the same.
Possibly, but again, he's not a guy who Ange maybe brought in either. So we don't even know if Ange fancies him. Whereas I think if Spurs want to take this to the next level, the two things they need is, one, they need a defensive midfielder to protect that back four, especially with how Ange plays. And two, they need legs in around him then. And Eze would give you that,
Yeah, good show. Any others you're saying out there you want to discuss? Or?
No, like, I've obviously with United, I think we've seen the Matthias de Ligt. We've seen that again. I'm not a huge fan of that myself. I think we've the English Harry Maguire. Why we want the fucking Dutch one is a bit beyond me. I think Brantway for me would be the way to go. I would also take the boy to Debo. I'm not overly impressed, let's say, with what we've been linked with so far. But again, we'll be linked with every man and their dog at the between now and the close of the window. So you've kind of got to take things with a pinch of salt until you see a move's been made by the club.
Yeah. The last 2 weeks are very jarring, aren't they? In terms of the window isn't open. The links are just ridiculous. All the churn out from agents.
I think in your head, when you make, you're going into the summer, you start to make signings, and you think, okay, we want this guy and we want this guy. I think it can be very difficult when you see players that you think, your club should be interested in, or you think you guys should be going to get, and then they get linked elsewhere, and you think, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we doing that? I've had that with with Joshua Zirkzee. Now I see obviously the talk was that AC Milan were going to trigger the clause, the 38 or the 40 million euro buyout clause that he has at Bologna. And he's just been called up to the Euro squad, by the way, because Bobby Broby is injured and won't play. So we're going to see the boy Xerxes. And to be honest with you, something we spoke about was the Dutch maybe not having the goals in them. This could change dramatically with this boy Xerxes. Yeah, it could. It really could. Now, I don't know how much game time he's going to get. Obviously, ahead of him, you've got, well, listen, you shouldn't have without Weghorst, but you might. You've got a Memphis Depay, you've got a Cody Gakpo, you've got a Daniel Mallon, you've got a Xavi Simons. You've got quite a lot ahead of you. But don't sleep on the boy Xerxes. He's a super, super footballer. Wherever he ends up this summer, he'll do it. He'll do a very, very good job. I was lucky enough to see him live in the Stadio Olimpico for Bologna, and he was excellent as a number 9 playing away from home in a game where his team didn't get a lot of the ball. You know, like Bologna were never going to go to the Stadio Olimpico and boss Lazio. But every time he got the ball, he was very economical with it. He kept the ball very well. He won free kicks. He ran the channels. And then in the end, he was able to link up and get the winner. So it was a really good performance. I was really, really impressed with him. You obviously know because we spoke when I came home and stuff. So to see him linked with us, I was kind of delighted. And then when you see somebody else might be getting the bounce on you, you're kind of thinking, oh, lads, we need to be quicker than this. We need to get this stuff over the line much quicker than this.
Yeah. It's always a kind of a frustrating time. It gets very jarring as well. And then you're linked with so many players as well. You swear you need a whole new squad.
Well, we do, but
yeah, well, I mean, you know what I mean. You don't need a whole 1 to 11.
No.
You're
We
nearly
need a
linked
1
to
to
any
fucking
player for any
16.
position, Absolutely. Quick prediction then for tomorrow night. Obviously, the opening of the Euros, Germany, Scotland, Clarkey versus Nagelsmann, and everything kind of in between. What do you reckon? What are you going for tomorrow night? What's the opener? Are we going to get a shock?
I think we might get a shock early on. As in, I think Scotland could take the lead here. Now, I think obviously Germany being the home team and Germany having the home crowd and more than likely having an official on their side, I think in the end, we could see Germany just fall over the line here 2-1. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Scotland's energy cause Germany a lot of trouble. This German side isn't the German side that we'd be used to. However, there is still a sprinkling of quality. The boy Jamal Musiala he's one of the best young talents in the world. He really is. He's phenomenal. And he's going to be a huge part of what Germany try and do over the next 4 weeks. I think Germany 2-1.
2-1. Right. Give us your bets. Let's do beat the bookie. Let's see what specials we've come up with.
Yeah, listen. I really didn't reinvent the wheel here, so you'll have to just bear with me. So I've gone for 4 altogether. So my first one was I went for the 6 group winners.
Okay.
And I've gone Germany, Spain, England, France, Belgium, and Portugal. Germany, Spain, England, France, Belgium, and Portugal.
Yeah. The tried and top.
Yeah, and if all 6 win their groups, it's 12-1.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's nothing special.
Yeah, it's not our usual beat the bookie flavour.
No, it's not.
It's
not. I follow that with another 12-1. My second 12-1 is France to win the competition and Kylian Mbappe to be the Golden Boot. Again, this isn't anything we don't already know.
Yeah.
I'm going with my third one, and my third one is name the finalists. And I've gone with England and France. And if England and France are finalists, it's worth 16-1.
it's very difficult to pick the finalists, isn't it? Especially with the
I
way that.
actually used I actually used a predictor earlier when I did this.
Oh, did you? Yeah, and that's what
Yeah,
I wrote.
because it puts when I pick the order of each group, the
Yeah.
predictor puts them into the rounds for you.
Okay.
So that's how because otherwise it's like fucking hieroglyphics. But I
Yeah.
did, I think it was on the Telegraph maybe, and I used something like that. So I got England and France to come out as the final, and that would be 16-1. And my last one, um, again, not a big price. I actually went for 4 players to be top goal scorers of their nation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So England's top goal scorer in the competition, I imagine, will be Harry Kane.
Yeah.
France, I've gone with Kylian Mbappe.
Yeah.
Portugal, I've gone with Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay.
And I've added in one kind of wild card to bump the price a little bit. He won't necessarily be a massive wild card because I would have mentioned this guy quite a bit. And it's the boy Kvaratskhelia at Georgia. Now,
Interesting.
he takes the penalties for Georgia. So if Georgia can score it all, free kicks, penalties, anything breaking around the box, this is going to be their guy. We tend to see when it gets to the world stage that the big players at each of those nations show up, especially when it's lesser lights,
Yeah,
you know.
Dino actually mentioned it on Tuesday that he was looking forward to seeing Georgia play and that boy as well. Yeah, so he had
Yeah.
mentioned it on Tuesday.
So if those 4 are the top goal scorers, it'll pay 16-1. Only of their nations. That's
Interesting.
Kane, Mbappe, Ronaldo, and Kvaratskhelia.
Yeah, you have a bit to align, but again, in a market where there's very little value with
There's
these
so
tournaments,
little
generally.
value. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's so little value.
yeah. Right, I've got 4 for you actually. My first one is one or more goals to be scored in each of the group games. And I love doing these bets because they're always fun. And there is always a 0-0 that kicks you in the backside, of course, but that's 7-1.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not a big price, but it's a
No,
fun
no.
kind of bet to have. Because what it does is it makes you look at all the games or tune into some of the
It's
nearly all
not.
the games.
I don't need to be tempted into watching all the games. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. And if you
I
want to
imagine that. I imagine that screen time's about to go through the fucking
oh yeah, that's
roof.
going to go up on the phone, no doubt about it.
Oh,
And then I had the same again, one or more goals to be scored in each game at the Euros, not just the group games, is 18-1.
okay.
So again, you have to follow right through. And then I had a 25-1, one or more goals in each
25 to
game.
1.
This one's
Jesus.
25-1, yeah. One or more goals in each game and one or more cards in each game. So I need a goal and I need a booking in each game, 25-1.
It's not great odds considering there's 52 games.
No, no. But you're like, what are you going to do? You're going to start backing 8 to 11 ons and throwing a fiver on it to win
I'm
six
going. You
quid.
know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna
Yeah,
be Mr. Bet Builder,
yeah.
and I'm gonna be doing individual games. And hopefully Paddy Power will be giving us the power play, the goal scorer, and the card and stuff like that with the super sub.
Now, you know the way we love goalkeepers.
I do.
I dug out a goalkeeper bet.
Right? Clean sheets or Golden Glove? Well, they're the same thing,
No,
aren't they?
no,
Really?
neither. 28-1. 4 or more saves to be made in each game.
4 or more set by every keeper.
No, in each game.
Right. So
So
if
4 or
tomorrow
more
night,
saves each match.
who's playing in goal for Scotland?
Um,
It's not Marshall, is it?
no, it's
It's not Craig Gordon either.
Gunn.
Angus Gunn. So if Angus Gunn makes 2 saves and Manuel Neuer or Marc-Andre Ter Stegen makes 2 saves, that's your 4 on your home and draw, yeah?
Yeah,
What price is that?
28-1.
That's a cool bet. I like that one.
It's a fun one.
Yeah, that's a cool bet. There's a bit about that one.
Yeah, and I was kind of thinking as well, if you look at the groups and stuff like that with Albania in there, and you've got Romania and the Ukraine and Austria and all that kind of stuff, lots of saves are going to be getting made because there's a lot of quality in the tournament as well. So I was thinking that might be a fun bet, and that's my highest price at 28-1. So wait till I just pop in here and I get some comments. Bonkers, check the darts chat. There we go. JSY is in. Evening all. How are you? Good to see you in. Thanks for joining us. And Dazzler, Oliver is doing the Spain game. I don't think we'll even look at the refs. Donald Trump looked well with his US championship with Logan Paul. Did you see that? Logan Paul had him on impulsive.
I didn't see him.
Yeah, apparently they did the podcast. It was crazy, I'd say. But yeah, that's the four I picked out. 4 fun bets that get you tuning into most of the games and stuff like that and all. They did have a crazy bet out there today, actually. 160 or more goals in the whole tournament. And I was thinking, that's over 3 goals a game.
That's a lot.
That's a stretch. Now, that was a real stretch.
Does it count goals scored in extra time?
I presume it counts everything. I didn't see anything on it that said
it might only be in normal
90
time.
90 minutes, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I was looking at that and I was going, 3 goals or more in every game on average.
No, thank you.
That would be a tough one, you know. I don't think the odds were huge either. Well, anyway, another good show, as always. You won't be here next week, so I'll be probably flying solo if we have a show organised, no doubt. Unless someone wants to drop in, take the hot tag.
I'll be busy. I'm at Pink in the Aviva next Thursday.
The carnival.
I don't mind watching Pink swinging around on a barbed wire over my head. It's absolutely fine for me, I'm not going to lie.
Absolutely. Oh, God, I was going to say something there, but I'm not going to say it. Anyway, folks, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification button, drop a like on the video, and we will talk to you again real soon. Cheers, pal.
Thanks, brother.